Hello and welcome to the Republic of Football podcast. I'm your host, Carter Yates, and joining me from beautiful Austin, Texas is Dave Campbell's senior writer, Mike Craven. And Craven, we can't even have Memorial Day without college football existential talk coming for it now.
That's right. Greg Sankey was at the mic doing what Greg Sankey does best, and that is making everybody else mad.
How triggered did you get watching it?
Not so much triggered because I have been, not to be this guy, but this is how I always thought it would go. This is proof of where the SEC and the Big Ten. And by the way, the Big Ten is as much culpable as the SEC, but their commissioner just doesn't get out in Front Street like Greg Sankey. And so Sankey and the SEC kind of take all the heat. But whenever this went from the BCS to the 4-team and then the 4-team wasn't enough, you knew this was an eventuality, especially as TV contracts rise and revenue share comes. The SEC and the Big Ten are trying to take their ball and go home, and these are just the beginning steps towards that.
So if you unplugged on Memorial Day and grilled out with the family, don't worry, we've got you covered. We were locked into the SEC. What is it, May meetings? What is this thing? I don't know. It's supposed to be a hangout. It turns into an existential crisis once again. Greg Sankey gets up on the mic, and for those who have been, doing other things, recently they moved the college football playoff to a straight seeding model. So last year there were guaranteed buys and top 4 seeds for conference champions. It's how Boise State got the 3 seed, I believe. They did away with that. I think, Craven, both you and I thought, hey, smart move. Shocking, right? But college football made the right move. Well, a week later, they've decided to go more in and make more drastic changes. Couple of things. So before we get to what Sankey said, Yahoo Sports' Ross Dellinger has reported the 11-man college football playoff governing board is granting CFP format decision-making powers to the SEC and Big Ten starting in 2026. And they're doing this so the SEC and Big Ten don't split up and form their own playoff, which SEC and Big Ten have kind of threatened to do, not so veiled anymore. The most discussed model now is a 16-team tournament where the SEC and the Big Ten each get 4 automatic bids, and the Big 12 and ACC get 2 each. And I agree with what you said, Craven, about the Big Ten is just as culpable in this, because I saw the Athletic Stuart Mandel. He said that from who he's talked to, Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, wants an NBA play-in style tournament on the conference championship weekend. And Sankey, honestly, has been non-committal about the 4 automatic qualifiers. But Petitti wants the automatic qualifiers because he wants to have that play-in tournament. But Sankey's the one who, at the SEC, may hang out, gets on the mic and says, I don't want to lecture on what the good of the game is for, basically. So what are your thoughts here, Craven?
I guess my first thought is that it's granting the SEC and the Big Ten the decision-making powers was akin to Vanilla Ice granting Suge Knight powers in Ice Ice Baby when he hung him out of a window, right? They didn't have much choice, because like I said earlier, the Big Ten and the SEC have all the chips. At the end of the day, they can just go do their own thing if they want to. And that is worst case scenario for everyone else. Unfortunately, you have to play ball a little bit with the SEC and the Big Ten, and Sankey, they know that. And that is why they're putting out all of these demands. It's just never enough, right? It's like the billionaire thing, right? When you're like, why? Well, you put a billionaire in charge of this, he'll do it fairly. It's not like he needs any more money. It's they always need more money. And these conferences are never satisfied. And that's the problem with college football. It's not really a Greg Sankey problem. I think he gets a lot of the heat, and I give him a lot of the heat. But this is a college football problem. It's bad that the SEC commissioner being really good at his job is a net negative for college football. Bingo. And it just speaks to a lack of overarching leadership. Greg Sankey's doing what Greg Sankey was hired to do. And that is to make the SEC the most all-powerful organization in college football and in all of sports. And he's doing that. You can look at baseball. You can look at basketball. You can look at softball. The SEC is king. And that is that is to the benefit of Greg Sankey, and that is a job well done. But it's bad for everyone else. And forever, college football has been a full wide country sport, right? Where there's 100 and something teams in it, and everybody, while not having the exact same shot, got to play in a similar sandbox. And that's going further and further away. And to me, the last straw of that is the automatic qualifiers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because like, if they move this to 16, and they will, because they got to feed the monkey, right? Like revenue shares coming. It's why they're talking about those play-in games. Like they just need money. They're just finding ways to find more money. And so it will go to 16. They would get 4 teams at least in every single year, but they want the automatic 4, and they want the other 2 power conferences to only have the 2. So it is undeniable that they're better than them, right? Like right now we call it the Power 4. But if the Big 10 gets 4 and the SEC get 4 and the Big 12 get 2 and the ACC get 2, there's no more Power 4. There's no more illusion at Power 4. They don't have to pretend as if they're the Big 12 and the ACC's equals. And right now they kind of do, right? And that's why they're threatened by the Cody Campbell appointment to the federal commission if that goes through, right? Like they have built this and they don't want to give it back to the UTEPs of the world or the Texas Techs of the world or anybody that they feel like they've passed up in this space. And so there's a lot of context to it, and I don't blame Greg Sankey for doing his job well. But I think we can all agree outside of those 10 teams that this benefits, that this isn't fun. This isn't good. The sport isn't healthier than it was a decade ago.
Mm-mm. That goes back to what I wrote in the 2024 Summer Magazine on the SEC preview, where I basically compared Greg Sankey to a CEO of a corporation. And your job as CEO is to maximize shareholder value by any means necessary. The problem is there is no college football commissioner. There is no Teddy Roosevelt trust buster for Greg Sankey's John D. Rockefeller, basically. So, I mean, you could argue back then if John D. Rockefeller really was running things too, but we don't need to go all the way over there. Greg Sankey undoubtedly is running everything right now in college football. And I think there's been 2 trains of thought on this. There is your camp, Craven, that I don't think you ever really wanted expansion. You knew what this would lead to.
I didn't want the fallout from expansion because, again, it's never enough. Like if you gave them an inch, they were going to take the full foot. And this is what taking the full foot looks like.
Mm-hmm. And then there is Stuart Mandel of The Athletic, who had a column last week about, he was one of the ones who advocated for expansion, right? And I honestly wanted expansion too, but Mandel is arguing that this is BS, that the SEC and Big Ten are now putting it in writing that we are better and we deserve 4 automatic qualifiers. And I think you would say, I think Josh Pate would say, who I'll talk about in a second. I think Ari Wasserman at On3 would say, what did you expect to happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you ever watch the movie about gangs, right? Like you ever watch The Wire or The Sopranos or anything
I'm on
like
season
this?
5 now of The Wire. Yeah.
This is what happens, right? Like they take part of your block and they're coming to take it all. If in a bubble, you could have expanded this to 8, kept the Pac-12 where it was, and you had 5 automatic qualifiers from the power conferences, a G5 team, and 2 at-large bids, I think everybody says that's awesome. But that's never how it was going to be. Like they're talking about expanding the college basketball playoff, and that's 68 teams now, right? Like they're going to keep growing and growing because the money's never enough. You always need more. And they were never going to, like when the rev share thing came about and they had to start paying their employees, or they are going to have to start paying their employees, they were never going to take that money from like existing right? Like Sankey's not going to give back 30% of his income. The coaches aren't going to give back 30% of their income. They're not going to start building awesome stadiums and great weight rooms to help recruit the town. Like they're going to go find more money sources, and more money sources is games. Like that is where the money sources are going to come from. So it's going to be the expansion of the playoff. It's going to be the consolidating like the power teams together. So you can sell Michigan versus USC and Texas versus Alabama and all of that stuff within the same conference. Like it was always going to go this way. And that was always my argument against it. Was I went to UTSA. I would love to live in a world where we would give access to every single program to win it. And I would argue with my friends about this expansion. Well, we're going to get a guaranteed spot into the playoff. Like we can have a route to entry. Like we can go win a national championship. No, you're not. Like they're never going to let you in the dance. They may let you play around at the golf course, but they're not going to make you a full-fledged member. Like it's just not going to happen. And we've seen it. Like I think life as a G5 fan was better before all of this.
100%.
And so I just think it was an inevitability of where this thing was going. And I always found it weird how naive not the fans were, because we're all fans, right? And again, I went to UTSA. I love the idea of what it could have been. But as like longtime media members who deal with college athletics a long time, like the Stuart Mandells of the world, like I don't get how they were so naive to this and how they thought the SEC and Big Ten, contrary to all evidence otherwise, was going to just be the fox that allowed themselves into the hen house and then didn't kill all the hens.
I don't understand the argument that Greg Sankey makes when you talk about they need more games, they need more spots. He acts like at that May meeting that they made some big sacrifice to go to 12 teams, and it was for the good of the game to do that. And his argument is that they would have had 2 of the 4 teams in last year. But what I don't get, what I'm workshopping through, is like, every team you get in is more money, is it not? Like 2 is worse than having 4. Or honestly, I crunched the numbers of the 14 college football playoff era. When they had 2 SEC teams in, there was 2 years they had 2 SEC teams in. It was 2017 and 2021. So this idea that the SEC every year was getting 2 teams out of the 4 is not true. And if you have 4 automatic qualifiers, that's the same percentage chance of winning the national championship, right? Like 4 and 16 is a 4th, 1 and 4 is a 4th. You have the same chance, but you have 4 teams now taking that revenue. So that's better, but he's acting like they made some big sacrifice to expand the playoff.
Yeah, that's the part that irritates me. It's the victimhood of it when you're the SEC, right? Like, oh man, the committee doesn't value strength of schedule. Like, we get punished for playing really hard games, and then Indiana gets there in 11-1. Alabama was in the conversation to make the playoff after losing to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, they get the benefit of the doubt. They were ahead of the Big 12 champion in the final committee rankings. Like, going into, they were 11th. Arizona State was 12th. Like, the committee obviously values the SEC schedule. And don't get me wrong, the SEC schedule is harder than everyone else.
100%.
It's just already cooked in, right? Like, you already get the benefit of the doubt. Ole Miss and South Carolina were ranked ahead of BYU. Indiana was 8th behind 5 teams that had 2 losses. Like, the idea that they just throw up the records and blindly put the ones with the better, the fewer amount of losses in there is a fallacy. And it's just another example of the SEC, like, putting out false information just to play victim and hoping that nobody pays attention. Mm-hmm. Right. And, you know, like yesterday with the whole, like, you can put out your coordinated press releases. Well, the Big 12, like, immediately was like, there was no press release, like, much less one coordinated with the ACC. And so if you're going to be the big bad bully, like, go be the big bad bully, but don't, like, also try to tell me that you're getting picked on and these things aren't fair. And really, you're the victim here and you should have more teams. And if everything was fair, we'd actually, like, we're all smarter than that. Mm-hmm. Or at least we should be. And so I don't know. It's harder and harder to, like, enjoy the football because of all the stuff on the outside. And I guess I've never understood why the power brokers of this sport are so hell-bent on ruining it for everybody. Like, I've just never understood that part of it, even before all this. Like, for my whole life, the NCAA has made rulings and rules and decisions that fly contrary to everything we like about college football. The paying of players and the way that it's done, asking the donors who are already donating and the ticket, buyers that are already buying tickets to give the money. The transfer portal being unlimited because they, like, hid their head in the sands for so long, ruining the regionality of the sport. Like, all of the things that they've done don't help the sport. It's just lucky for them that we love it so much we can't give it up. But it continues to always be a decision that makes no sense if you were thinking about the actual consumer of your product.
Well, it's because when they're thinking about the product, they're just all suits in a boardroom saying, like, if we make this decision that everyone's going to hate, they're still going to watch our stuff, but we will make 1/10 of a dollar more. It's just like total profit maximization. You mentioned there, the sport feels different. I saw one of the big takes coming out for Josh Pate who has a college football show. And I really like Josh Pate. Let me say that before I start on what I'm about to say. His take was college football is messy, but when anyone claims it's ruined, I always ask the same question: do fall Saturdays still feel the same? And he kind of goes into that whole like it's 3rd and 8, and Alabama's playing Georgia, and it's inside 2 minutes, and the stadium is electric. Like, does that feel the same? I'd argue that's a lazy argument because that's basically, is football still exciting? I think it only feels the same if you talk about or are a fan of the top 20 teams in college football, the blue bloods. But you and I, Craven, cover from Texas and A&M, the blue bloods, to UTEP and Sam Houston, who are in Conference USA. And it's a different sport for the teams that are at the very bottom. And I'd argue, I saw Shahan Jayaraja, the former employee friend of the program at Dave Campbell's. He said, the roster turnover and there's no regionality in the conference anymore. That makes it feel a lot different. So what do you think about that? I think it's totally different. I think fall Saturdays feel different for most of, if not all, non-blue bloods.
I think Chris Vanini nailed it when he quote tweeted it and said, like, I had to ask Washington State and Oregon State if it feels any different.
Facts.
Right? Like, they got completely left behind, and there's going to be more Washington States and Oregon States. Like, it's not going to be those two. Like, Texas Tech is worried about being left behind. Baylor is worried about being left behind. Iowa State's worried about being left behind, right? Like, there's no telling where this thing stops and who gets cut off and who gets allowed on the bus. And that should scare all of us, because you lose a couple of programs, fine. Most of us get over it. The G5 is not exactly what the P4 is. And like, there's this understood kind of like, Mason-Dixon line with it. And we know that, you know, who's above other. Okay, fine. Like, most people only care about Power 4 football, right? Like, the viewership backs that up. But when you start chopping off other Power 4 teams, like, where does it stop? And if you isolate whole pockets of the country, why would they care about your product anymore? And they're assuming that, like, the Iowa State fan watches Alabama, Georgia regardless, not that the Iowa State fan watches Alabama, Georgia because it matters to them, because they're in the same atmosphere, like the same sport. And so you're just watching your peers play because you're trying to see who's going to be ranked ahead and who loses so you can move up the top 25. Well, if you're no longer in those same boats, right? If what happens in the Texas LSU game no longer matters to Kansas State because they're not even in the same like league anymore, why would they watch it? Like, why would they care? I mean, other than football is football, right? And so I just think they're banking on our enjoyment of college football and big time college football never running out. And I would just argue that that's not going to be true. Well, and the Josh Pates of the world can exist by only covering those 20 to 25 teams that quote unquote matter and bring in ratings. But that's not what college football is. To me, that's not what college football is and what makes it beautiful. I could just go be an NFL fan if that is how I wanted to watch the sport. But I don't, because I like UTEP versus New Mexico State. I like Kansas State versus Iowa State. I like the Apple Cup. I liked Baylor versus Texas. I liked SMU being in the same conference as all the other schools around them. And I don't know. I think we're losing that, and I don't think it's good.
Here's where this is going. You mentioned the NFL. College football is heading towards the Big Ten and the SEC are the two conferences. There's 32 teams in the entire league. What does that sound like? That is NFL, except it's played with 18 to 22-year-olds, which means it's worse than the NFL. It's worse football than the NFL. So what is the market for it?
And you're rooting for laundry. And if the people in that laundry no longer represent your school, right? Because the end game to this, like, eventually they all split away from the NCAA, and then they're just licensing the jersey, and you can or cannot go to school, right? Like, it won't even matter. You'll just be employees of the university, and if you don't want to go get your degree, you don't have to. And right or wrong, I think one of the lures of college football was like, you're rooting on people who like also sat in your same dorms and in your same classrooms and ate at the same places you did and went to parties at the same frat houses that you did 30 years ago. And there's this like interconnective tissue to that. Like, wow, like Vince Young loves Texas the way I love Texas. And maybe that was never true. Maybe that was always kind of a fallacy, right? But like, it felt more true then than it does now. And that's specifically true if you're a fan of North Texas or UTSA or Texas State or like, look at where all those players go. Like, they don't stick around anymore. And so like, you can't even like fall in love with your favorite linebacker or wide receiver or quarterback, especially because they're going to be gone. And so all you have left is to root for the university and to root for the school. And if they kick your school out of that club, why would you care about the other schools? Right? Like, I'm obsessed with football. This is our job. We'll probably keep watching. But like, I'm a English Premier League fan, but I wasn't raised and born in that. Right. And if Liverpool for some reason got kicked out of the English Premier, I don't know if I would keep watching it in the same way, because like my tie to the league would no longer matter. And so why would I watch that league all the time? I just think if you're a Baylor fan and you're no longer in the same league as Texas and Georgia and Ohio State and Penn State, why do you care about their league anymore? And why would you care about yours? And then all of a sudden we lose what matters to a lot of us in college football. I just think we're going down a really big slope here, and the people in charge have so much self-interest in their own deal that the greater good can't be looked at and served in any real way.
Well, to add insult to injury, the White House has now paused plans for President Trump's commission on college sports. So, I mean, I thought it was going to be saved, and now we're screwed again.
Ted Cruz has come to save the day, Carter. Haven't you heard?
No. What? Oh, did they just? Is it back on?
Well, I think he's going to do something similar to that. He's definitely like the sports senator right now. Like, jokes about Ted Cruz aside, I do think he cares greatly about this topic, and I do think he will try to get something done here. I just don't know what can be done. The antitrust, like, that's just above my pay grade. But the more people who are involved that aren't working for the SEC and the Big Ten, the better. And that's why I'm rooting for Cody Campbell here, right? Because like, Cody Campbell's a billionaire. He's not like a second-class citizen fighting for the underdog, right? But like, in this scenario, Texas Tech is the underdog. And I think having more people who are representative of schools that would be left out of this grand super plan is good, because you need those people at the table. Because like a Nick Saban, what would he know about needing to help those type of teams in the world? You know, like, he's been for so long, he's been in the power seat chairs to where he doesn't know what TCU needs or what Tech needs or what Iowa State needs or what SMU needs. And so we need more and more of the big money folks with a lot of power at those schools to step in and wield some of theirs and see if they can offset what is happening with the two power conferences.
Let's get more cooks in the kitchen, not involved with SEC and Big Ten. It is good Cruz is stepping in, though. He's got some good mojo. Usually his sports teams he roots for do well, right? That should help. Right. All right. I think maybe
he'll be too busy to go to actual games.
I think that's something all Astros fans could hope for, and whichever other games he goes to. All right. I think